Right about now, for many, it means working from home. That is the new normal. And CBS News contributor Derek Thompson has been doing that on and off now for about 7 years. He also wrote an article about it in The Atlantic. It's titled, "The Coronavirus is Creating a Huge Stressful Experiment in Working from Home." That's definitely true. Derek, good morning. I know a lot of people swear they are productive when they work from home, and they are. But one entrepreneur told you that it's just not a good idea and not effective for most companies. Is that because of the fridge, the couch, and the television?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, when you think about the benefits of remote work, it's you want to leave the bad stuff about the office at the office and take the good parts of the office home. So a good part about the office is that you have routine. The office is not your couch. You have to leave your couch and go to the office in order to work. And that sort of division between work life and leisure time is really difficult to import back to your own living room, your own kitchen counter, your own bedroom. It's especially difficult right now, I should say, during a pandemic when you have schools canceled, the kids are home, the restaurants are closed. So it's a very different situation right now than you might typically have. But theoretically, that's the benefit of remote work, is that you have time to focus on your own. You have time to structure your time as you want, and managers aren't judging you by the proxy of how often you are sitting in your seat. Rather, when you work from home, you can set explicit goals, and they can judge you by what you actually achieve.
Are they really not judging, Derek? Are they really not judging? And what conversations should managers and employees have with each other before they start working from home?
I talked to a lot of researchers in the last few days, really the last few weeks, about our sort of brief remote work future here with the pandemic, and two words kept coming back to me: information and isolation. They said at the office you have a lot of information and you have low isolation. You're surrounded by people. You can see what they're like. When you're home, however, you have less information about your coworkers and you feel more isolated. So I think what's really important for managers and workers to get right, to make remote work work, is they have to over-communicate. If you're getting up and you're going for a walk, let that person know. If you want to have a conversation with your boss, don't just make it a text or make it a Slack. Maybe actually see their face so you can see their expression when you give them an idea and they say, I need to think about that. You can see exactly what, I need to think about that means. Yes. When people just type, I have to think about that, you might just initially think, wow, they dislike me, they're criticizing me. But when you see expressions in people's faces, you realize that emotions are more complicated. So,
Derek, I'm
a huge fan of video conferencing.
Yeah, Derek, a lot of people who are doing this for the first time are really stressed out about it. I mean, I've got a wife who's a teacher who's suddenly at home. She's got to set up a classroom from home. I've got a daughter who's a researcher who's worried basically about being alone a lot. And loneliness is an issue in this, isn't it?
Loneliness is a huge issue. Yeah, I mean, that is, again, a word that just kept coming back to me when I was talking to people. When I said, what's the most surprising thing you have to tell me about remote work experiments that you've seen other companies try? They kept saying the most surprising thing is the loneliness factor. It's the isolation. And, of course, that's going to be so much worse in a pandemic when you're not allowed to leave your house in many cases. If you look around the world in places like Italy and Spain, maybe increasingly in places in the U.S., where it becomes really difficult to do anything outside of your own home. You're going to have real isolation, real loneliness problems. And I do think that as long as we're evaluating the degree to which remote work works, we need to separate what is specific to the pandemic and what is specific to remote work. Specific to the pandemic, you're going to have a lot of extreme loneliness, a lot of forced childcare at home. In remote work, generally, the schools are going to be open. Restaurants will still be serving food. You can go out and work at a cafe. And so you want to keep those two issues separate.
You're pointing out really good distinctions, Derek. So what do you do to make it as stress-free as possible?
I think about two things. I think about routine, I think about physical activity. So again, with routine, I've written a lot for The Atlantic about how the boundary between work and leisure was already becoming extremely porous. Once you're working from your couch, and your couch is where you watch Netflix and where you talk to your manager and where you write articles, that boundary between work and leisure completely falls apart. So it's really important, I think, to set up routines. What are you going to accomplish in the morning? How are you going to take breaks? When are you going to stop working? And then physical activity. You know, you're going to go crazy if you don't do anything inside, if you just keep sort of pacing between the refrigerator and the kitchen counter. And so trying to build a little bit of physical activity into my day is a challenge, but one that I try to do.
Yeah, the walking to the fridge doesn't count. Derek, we appreciate you coming into the studio for us. We'll let you get home now, I guess.
Really good advice.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.